Okay, so we're looking at working with color in InDesign. So the document that I have open here is called Color Swatches. You can download it from the link in the description. And we're going to just manage our colors through the swatches panel. So the one thing that you are discouraged from doing is just randomly mixing colors with your color picker. So for example, if I chose, let's say, this logo here, and I just double clicked on my fill color here, so you can see I can bring fill to the front or stroke to the front. So fill, double click to open my color picker and randomly mix up a color to apply. That's not a good way of working because the swatch is not going to be saved in the swatches panel, and it's just it's more of a random way of working. What you want to be is very organized with your colors, and you should even have a fairly clear idea of what colors you want before you even start creating your swatches, but not everyone does that. So how do we create color swatches? Well, you can mix and then add to your swatches panel. So let's do that first. So let's say that I want this logo to be a sort of caramelly cappuccino color. I absolutely hate the way color gets mixed in InDesign. I find this quite a sort of unintuitive way of choosing colors. I'm going to rather choose the H, hue, saturation, and brightness method. And so there I can actually choose my hue first, and then I can set my saturation and brightness. That works much better for me. So I'm going to go into the sort of orangey colors there, and then here I'm going to choose a color, and I'm going to say add HSB swatch. Okay, so you'll see that in my swatches panel now I have a new swatch down at the bottom here, and it's set to the hue, saturation, and brightness values. I want to stick to CMYK because this is going to be for print, so I'm just going to double click on that swatch and I'm going to change from HSB to CMYK. Okay, that's better. So that's one way of adding swatches. Another way of adding swatches is just to click on this little plus button. So I'm going to go back to paper, and then, not paper, black, and then press plus, and it's going to make a copy of that black. I'm going to double click, and now I can add my swatch. So whatever swatch you're on, that will be duplicated when you add a swatch. And now I can mix up my color. So let's say I want something that's kind of coffee colored. So that's going to be yellow, magenta, some black. Okay, and I'm going to call it coffee. So I can choose to either name it with the CMYK values, or I can give it my own name, coffee. And it's CMYK and process and OK. So now I have coffee and I have this color. I'm going to rename this color. I'm going to call it cappuccino. I think I've spelled that right. Cappuccino. Okay, so that's how you can add swatches. You can also go to your hamburger icon and you can say new color swatch. So there's several ways that you can add your swatches, but what I would recommend you do, and this is how I work, is I go to my hamburger icon for the swatches panel and I say select all unused colors, and I'm just going to deselect cappuccino and coffee, and I'm going to delete those colors. So I don't want the colors that I'm not using. I only want the colors I'm using. And then I can start to apply those colors. So let's say for this here, we're going to use the cappuccino color. And then for these here, now I have converted this text to outlines for your convenience so that you don't have font issues, which means I'm going to have to double click to enter the group. And then I'm just going to shift click on all of these headings. Whoops, let me try that again. And I'm going to apply coffee. Okay, I'm doing it individually, but you can shift click if you're accurate. Okay, so if I click away and now press W, you can see that I've applied that color to the text there. I'm also going to take this here and I'm going to apply the cappuccino, and I'm going to bring the tint value down to 50%. Then I'm going to bring the stroke to the front, and I'm going to apply the coffee stroke, and I'm going to go to my stroke value here, and I'm going to push the stroke up to 3 points. All right, and that's how you work with swatches. Now, what about gradients? So if I wanted to apply a gradient to something, I need to create that gradient. So I'm going to go to the gradient panel, and I'm going to click on this gradient here, and I'm going to, I need to bring the fill to the front so that it's applied to the fill. Okay, and then I'm going to change the colors here. Now, it's a little bit fiddly because you need to be able to drag and drop your swatches. So I'm going to take the gradient panel out so that I can have the swatches panel open. And I'm going to drag coffee and drop it on the first color stop here. And make sure you don't drag it next door, so you don't want two swatches on top of each other. So I've got one color stop there, and then cappuccino on this side, one color stop. And I want to save this gradient, so I'm going to press plus button, and there it's saved, and I'm going to call it coffee gradient. Okay, and now I can put my gradient panel back in here. So if I wanted to apply that coffee gradient, I could select something and apply it, and then I can take my gradient tool and I can drag to set the direction of my gradient. What if I want to put swatches into a group? So let's say that I want cappuccino and coffee to be in their own group. So if I just, nothing selected, if I select those two and I go down here to new color group, I can put those into their own group, which I can rename to coffee colors. So now I have my own little group here. Normally your color groups would contain 2 to 5 colors, but it's not limited to that. You can do whatever you want to with that. If I drag my coffee gradient into the group, it will also take that. And so now I have my colors really super organized here. I've got the swatches that I need, and I've applied them. So there's more to color than this, but this is the basics. Just be organized and manage your swatches effectively.